Well, I think it's the turn of the hour. I can see we've got attendees and guests kind of dropping in, which is great to see. I imagine over the next few minutes we'll have more and more people join, which is fantastic. I guess let's start off by introducing the panelists. If anyone hasn't seen on social media, very pleased to announce that we've got 3 great machine shops joining the panel discussion today. I think actually we're slightly weighted towards Texas. So we've got Rhys Anderson, founder and CEO of Method Manufacturing. Rhys, do you want to give a quick introduction to the guests?
Yeah, definitely. We're located just outside of Austin, Texas. We're a 5-axis machine shop primarily focused on aerospace.
Fantastic. We then got Johnny Goode, looking back up towards Indiana. Johnny, do you want to introduce yourself and MSP?
Yeah, so my name is Johnny Goode. I'm the president and co-owner of MSP Manufacturing, primarily aerospace, defense, and firearms. 5-axis milling, lathe, and assembly and paint booth. And then we have our own core product where we're the only ones approved by the FAA to manufacture, and those are pretty much found in every commercial aircraft that's airborne right now.
Fantastic. And then finally, last but not least, we've got our very own Jesse Casto. Jesse, I think you're probably the most interviewed guest we've ever had at AMFG. We love you so much. We've got you on again. Jesse, do you want to introduce yourself, founder and owner of Better CNC?
Yeah, no, but say Better CNC, we're a small machine shop. It's me primarily with a couple helpers, but we're growing 3-axis milling machines and really take advantage of any technology we can find, like AMFG and all that kind of stuff out there.
Awesome. And finally, we've got Ben Fitzsimmons. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself? Part of the AMFG team here. I always was saying to the guys earlier, I like to call him our algorithm wizard. Ben's been with us quite some time now. Ben, go for it.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, as Henry said, part of the AMFG team and do a lot of the technical onboarding work in the implementations.
Fantastic. And for anyone who doesn't know, myself, I'm Henry. I'm a head of machine shops here at AMFG, and I'll be moderating the panel discussion over the course of the next hour. We're going to be talking about lots of exciting topics, some really topical things and themes that we've been talking about that will affect machine shop quoting over the course of 2026. Topics that the MFG marketing team have been researching and writing about, working really hard over the last couple of months to talk to our viewers about. Things like material pricing, ever-changing material pricing environment, impacted by, obviously, the impacts of tariffs, but also changing economic and socio-economic climates. We've got the impact of reshoring, again, in part as a result of tariffs, but also nearshoring and OEMs returning to high-value Western manufacturers, like some of the great panelists that we've got today. We've got turning down work and when to turn down work, I think is the main question that we're answering there. There's obviously a range of different reasons why you might do that. And then finally, last but not least, we've got the skills gap, which seems to ever be increasing. I know, Johnny, obviously we spoke about that a lot when you came to London to visit us and did the interview with me as well. So we'll be speaking a lot about the skills gap and how we are going to try and reduce that. All of these topics have been written about on the AMFG website, on the blog. This will be linked after this webinar and this panel discussion via our social media, most importantly, LinkedIn. So please do take a look, see what we've been writing about over the last few months. And there'll be a number of videos shared, obviously on YouTube as well as LinkedIn, as a result of this panel discussion as well. I think let's get started. We're 5 minutes past 4, or just 4 minutes past 4. We've got most of, I think, the guests that we're going to get today in the discussion already. So I think I'll put straight to the floor. Let's start off with Jesse. You're the first person I can see on the right-hand side of my top panel. So we'll start off with you, Jesse. Could you maybe talk a bit about some of the changing material prices you've seen at Better CNC over the last couple of years? I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been an interesting year for material pricing. Just because, let's say, over here in the U.S., with the tariff back and forth that we had for a good chunk of the year, never really noticed that much of material price changes for us until maybe the last month or two. We've started seeing it jump up quite a bit, and it's very much, some suppliers will jump up 10%, some suppliers will jump up 30, 40%. So recently we've been flagging our customers for a little bit, saying pricing may change on some of the repeat work we do. And we're finally starting to see that come through and pass that down the line.
definitely.
Uh,
Obviously, during COVID, I think is when we saw the biggest fluctuations in material prices when quotes are valid for 1 day, 48 hours. If
Oh,
that, we certainly brought out a lot of new features in AMFG to be able to deal with that. Inventory management being the key one. Do you think it's got worse or obviously better since then?
It's jumping up again, but I think ever since COVID, everybody's kind of tiptoed a little bit after realizing how quickly pricing can change. Like a lot of my suppliers still only maintain quote pricing for 1 day, 3 days a week, kind of keeping that buffer there for themselves in case anything dramatic happens in the world again. So I think there's definitely some long-term lessons that everybody's learned through COVID on how quickly that stuff can change.
Definitely, and maybe coming back, Jesse, to quoting and kind of the way that you're pricing material at the quote stage. Would you say that you're adding on a significant margin at the quote stage in order to protect yourself, give you a buffer if you are eventually winning that job, or would you say you're keeping yourself pretty thin on the ground now?
We always put in a bit of a buffer. One thing I have changed is on orders where there's a larger material price, like where it's just a bigger purchase for us. We're more active in asking for down payments or payment up front. Basically, we let customers know this helps us lock in your material pricing right away. Because normally we try and order when we're ready to run the job, but because of the fluctuations, we encourage customers to pay a little bit more up front so we can get their material, just have it on the floor. That way we can get today's pricing, knowing what it is now and not since we don't know what it'll be next week.
Definitely. Rhys, I remember seeing, I think over the last couple of months on your LinkedIn, it just popped into my head. There was, I think you had a photo of a car and a private jet and a big old chunk of aluminium. Would you be able to maybe talk a bit about that story and how that came to be?
Yeah. It was actually heat treated 15.5, and we had a customer that was kind of in a bind. They needed some large, complicated 15.5 parts, and we're like, yeah, we can do them. We just can't get material. So they said, not a problem. Can you meet us at the airport in 30 minutes? So drove to the airport, loaded up back to my car, and got started on the project.
Wow. You don't hear about that often. We clearly all need to get into the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Johnny, have you got any similar stories?
No, I think we bought so much material at the end of last year, right before stuff for all of our core product for this year. But I agree with Jesse is that kind of the last couple months we've seen some increases, but none of our none that I can think of off the top of my head hold anything less than 30 days. So we still at least have that buffer. And we do a lot of new work this year. So we're quoting the job as is with a slight markup on the material. So material costs have not impacted a ton. And the one thing because of tariffs and COVID is I think like the customers are not shocked by price increases anymore as they were maybe pre-pandemic. So that can insulate you a little bit.
Definitely. And I think we always talk about typically seeing material cost being 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% of a total quotes value. Obviously, it depends on the value add that you're actually performing for that. So if you're doing monolithic machining, that makes sense. Would you say that's kept? I mean, all of you, would you say that's kept pretty consistent, or has there been a bit of a raise there?
We're in a unique situation where sometimes the government will buy things from us that we have to buy from someone else, and we're more passing through it, where that, is a significant part of the job. But again, that one's not, we're never upside down on those ones. But yeah, material generally is pretty low for us, especially we're doing a lot of things other than just machining to the product. Machining, assembly, and painting, and outside processing all in-house. So, and material's pretty low cost to us. So, of anything, I'd say it's more on the regulatory things that are increasing our cost, like CMMC and other types of issues.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, sorry, Jesse, go on.
I'd say a lot of my customers are sellers. They're their own products. I sell to them and they sell to the end consumer. So anytime there's a price bump where I have to bump up my price, that they feel it pretty quickly just because they're small businesses as well. That's about 3% this past year.
Sorry. Have they been fairly understanding of that, Jesse?
Yeah, it's been kind of a mixed reaction. Some of them aren't happy. They understand it. They're not happy about it. I tell them like it's all of my suppliers go up. Like one of my automotive customers, his price is going up about 20% next round of orders, and so he's having to move his pricing up too. But that's just because I used to pay $30 for material. I'm now having to pay 45 to 50 from about a year ago. So it's unavoidable, and yeah, mixed reactions. Some understand, some aren't happy, but understand. So
sure, not much you can do.
Yeah.
I think something that we've noticed, obviously, we spoke briefly about at the start, and some of the things that we're planning here at AMFG feature-wise when it comes to material management. We've seen an explosion of the big online pricing catalogs. So Mastercard, obviously, most people are aware and familiar with that, but online metals, they seem gaining a lot of prominence. A lot of people are using them certainly for pricing on quoted parts, but also ordering and buying their raw materials from them. Could you guys speak to that? Is it something that you're seeing more? Is it something you're potentially using yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah. We have material vendors that's one of the primary reasons we use them, because we can get their pricing quickly. And typically, if we can turn something around quickly, then we get the job. Where if I've got to, send an email and wait for a week, then I'm probably not going to get it. So I think as far as on the material side, it's a, big advantage for the company selling the material.
I'd say we'll use the online pricing quite a bit. Yeah, like Online Metals or Allro, some of those guys, for the quote, and then a lot of times we'll pursue material locally because typically online pricing is a little bit high, so we'll use that for our quote, and that'll be part of our buffer, and then we'll see if we can source it cheaper and get it when we need it later on if we win the order.
Definitely, and it seems like a strategy that we're seeing shops take a lot, where pricing up maybe to start off with on their quote, adding a bit of margin in there as well, and then if time permits, which often it doesn't completely get that, then you're looking for a cheaper source of material, more cost-effective source of material to increase your margins. I guess everyone looking into 2026, have you got? Is there anything in particular you guys are looking at doing in order to offset potential material price increases? Obviously, there's still serious geopolitical conflicts and wars and situations happening worldwide. That seems to only be increasing at this point, the instability. Does anyone have any kind of thoughts on how they want to buffer against that coming into 2026?
That kind of implemented. Oh, go ahead, Jesse. No.
I was going to note, because we're a smaller shop, we do a lot of prototyping and some production work. One thing I'm doing is trying to get more of that production work, so it's a little bit more predictable on what materials we'll need and when we'll need it. That way, we can kind of forecast our cash flow a little bit better, instead of just chasing the ups and downs with every new order.
Yeah, what we did in 2025 is, so we get we're blessed in the fact that we get a year to 2 year forecast of a lot of the products that we do production on. So I've just been doing like quarterly or semi-annual purchasing. So when I'm doing that, I'm doing it in a much bigger volume, and then my per piece prices is a lot lower. And then it's also more efficient on the machines, because instead of running it once a month and having to tear things down, I do it once or twice or a couple times a year, which just opens that machine up for other jobs, where I'm not absorbing so much setup and breakdown time just for one part.
Definitely.
Are you tied into selling your goods for one price for that 1 to 2 years then, Johnny?
Yeah, it depends on the customer. When it's on our government jobs, we have like a 5 year contract, and there's already built in, year 2 price, year 3 price, year 4 price, and year 5 price that increase. And then for some of the other OEMs, it's the same price for 2 years. They used to do 5 years, and I've argued ever since COVID, I'll never do a 5 year locked in price, just because the 2020s have been a interesting time to do business, more so I feel like than a lot of other decades in our past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fascinating.
Awesome. I think on that note, we'll probably move on to our second topic of discussion today. Something that we're talking about a lot here at AMFG. It's kind of the consequences of it we're seeing a lot as well. Impact of reshoring. Reshoring, obviously, with some of the consequences of US government policy, as well as other European countries' policy on tariff environment, looking at bringing manufacturing back to country of origin, especially when it comes to critical defense and aerospace manufacturing. We're certainly seeing what we call and characterize as a tidal wave of RFQs coming back into not just the US, but also Canada, Northern Europe, and Central Europe as well, where the majority of our customers are based. I'd love to get some of your guys' thoughts on the impact of reshoring, maybe how, if you're seeing an increase in the volume of quotes you're receiving, and maybe even the sort of quotes that you're receiving. Maybe if we start off with you, Rhys.
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, I mean, my opinion is it almost seems like it was a little bit of a distraction because I think, we're primarily aerospace defense type stuff. So a lot of what we see is as like reshoring jobs. I think the people coming over there, they're so fixed in what they're used to paying in, China that it's a huge shock for them. And, I've kind of found that, we'll spend a lot of time, just trying to even, get where it might be even reasonable for them. But even that is, too much for them compared to what they're used to paying for. So I think for me, it just seems more of like a distraction. I think it's great. It's just not in line with the kind of work that we do. So generally we try to stay away from stuff like that where somebody's trying to bring a product back to the US or something like that. It's just, and for what we do, it's not the right kind of fit for us, but.
Yeah, but a lot of reshoring efforts I've seen. And I was talking to somebody else locally that works at another shop here. Yeah, we're kind of the same feeling. Anybody that's reshoring, if we happen to win their work, we know it's not going to be forever work because customers like that are typically looking for the cheapest price. So we're not going to put in a lot of effort to kill ourselves to get to that price point, knowing if somebody comes up a nickel cheaper, we probably lost the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in pretty much a similar boat. The only way we'll really take on the work is if it's an existing customer that maybe have a project that was machined overseas and they already know the US cost, so they don't have that shock value. But when you look at like just all the manufacturing work in the US without onshoring, there's like more manufacturing work than there are shops, especially if you factor in like the space race and all of those things. So yeah, there's definitely plenty of work, and the companies that are just wanting a cheap price are, I mean, not who I'm going after either. I provide value, not cheap.
Yeah.
Seems like everyone's in agreement with that statement, Johnny. And I think it's something we've seen as well. The amount of work that's going in the US is huge. I mean, constantly we're seeing new shops setting up. It's funny, there's statistics that you always see in the UK, which is the amount of pubs that are shutting down, right? There's 2 pubs shutting down every day. Feels like the opposite's happening with machine shops in the US. It's like 2 machine shops are popping up every hour. Would you say you've seen the same thing, guys?
Yeah, I saw even like venture capitalists and hedge fund managers that are like manufacturing is what's going to create the next bunch of millionaires just because for the last decade, really, they've made manufacturing not sexy. They've pushed all of these people into 4-year degrees, which there's definitely a place for that. But I mean, man, we're getting high schoolers into our education pipeline that, but when they're getting out of high school, they already have CNC knowledge, and sometimes they're getting hired by us, and they're making more than some people with a college degree when they graduate. So I think that that's starting to turn, which now you have more people in the workforce, which allows companies to grow. It's one thing if you start a manufacturing company, but inevitably you're going to have to grow and bring on people. And if you don't have people, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah, definitely. And Rhys, I know when we obviously came to visit you guys only a few weeks ago now, it feels it feels like a while ago. It's been a busy couple of weeks. You were mentioning that I think you set up shop 2017, 2018. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, 2018.
2018, yeah. Would you say, looking back to where you were then compared to if you were to start now, would you say it's a considerably different environment? Or would you say it's much similar?
I think definitely the type of work we're doing is totally different. But I think that's more of just a factor of, kind of the direction we grew. So we kind of grew as we needed to and got into more complicated things. And I think the complexity and type of jobs we're working on now, I would have, if you would have asked me in 2018 what we would be working on, um, I wouldn't have predicted where we're at today. And I think a lot of that's just because of the push to, get back into space and do that kind of thing. But yeah.
Definitely. And Johnny, you also mentioned the space race. It's a big topic. It's quite an exciting time to be living in when it's been decades of dark ages in terms of space exploration. I know Ben. I always go over to his desk, and he's always excited when he's looking at space application parts or speaking to our US team about parts that they've seen and challenges that they've had quoting on those sort of parts. Ben, what's your thoughts on that?
It's interesting. Obviously, it's the more complex parts come through, the more challenging it is. So we're it's a constant kind of cycle of learning, I suppose. But it's absolutely super interesting to see a massive variety of different parts coming through, and yeah, all across the board.
Definitely. And Rhys, I think you mentioned it yourself. You were getting very exposed to the space race and the sort of parts you're seeing. Do you only see that trend increasing, or would you say you've kind of hit the hype, the end of the hype for the space race?
Honestly, I think we're just getting started. We've been having kind of year-end meetings with our customers, and every one of our major space customers is at least doubling their output for 2026.
Wow.
So that's where, they're trying to secure capacity. We're trying to bring on more machines and equipment. So, I mean, I think we're just at the beginning of it. So.
Obviously, do you find Rhys, a lot of these parts, the space parts are kind of prototype, or I guess you're not getting any large batch orders for this kind of thing?
We're actually doing a lot of both.
Okay.
So we do a lot of satellite work. So for that, we have production runs that are running on automation cells for extended periods of time, and then during the day we do a lot of prototyping. So it's a bit of a mix from that regard. And then even some of our customers are going to be switching from prototyping and doing production to only doing prototyping in their shops and then outsourcing everything else just so that they can try to scale. So so it's just kind of a mix.
That's interesting. So from their perspective, they can achieve scaling more easily if they're only focusing on prototype work, you think?
Yeah. And, like all of our customers, for the most part, have manufacturing capability in-house. And I think, everybody has been sold kind of this story of vertical integration from, like, say, SpaceX. But in reality, like, SpaceX is, the largest buyer of machine parts in the US right now. And I think all these other companies that have kind of, went down that path are kind of finding the same thing. Yeah, we probably need to have some sort of internal capacity to make parts, but we need to have trusted vendors to back us up. So.
Oh, I see. Oh, very good.
I guess coming back to quoting, maybe talking about SpaceX and any of the other big space contractors, this kind of pursuit of vertical integration, taking prototyping more into house. In a way, I guess that, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it reduces a bit the visibility you might have had to be able to quote effectively if you're not seeing that part right from the start of the design cycle. Would you say it's made it harder to quote by kind of taking on that product further down the line, or would you say it's even made it easier?
I mean, I would say it's easier because there's less. They've already went back and forth with their engineer or their machinist and their engineer to sort out all the pretty basic manufacturer for design issues. So when it gets to us, it's hopefully a little bit more like streamlined. especially when you have some of these younger space companies. You spend a lot of time going back and forth over some pretty basic things because these guys are coming out of engineering school. They probably don't have a lot of experience making real components, and you're kind of providing that education. So if they can do that in-house and get it to a point where it's ready to go and you're not having to educate the customer, I mean, great.
What about from the relationship side potentially? If you have to offer your expertise from the kind of engineering consultancy side, ever kind of like the idea of that, or you're more than happy to let them do the work?
Kind of more than happy to. It really depends. Sometimes I find you have to be really careful because it can burn up a lot of time. So you might build a relationship that way, but it can be a huge time suck. So it's a little bit of give and take.
No, for sure. I think it's actually, when I was previously working at a manufacturing company, there was a fascinating project for kind of a pneumatic device that went in an organ transplant. It was a device for storing organs to be transported for transplant, and that went through a huge amount of prototyping and design decisions, and it was I think the reason I asked the question previously or just earlier is because it obviously got a good dialogue going, but at the end of the day, I think it was a money loss.
Yeah.
Definitely. And Johnny, I think from what we've spoken about previously, you seem to be taking on more serial production run work. How do you see that changing? With the onset of the space race, there's a lot of different machine parts that come as a result of that. I guess there's probably the biggest breadth or variety of different machine parts that you get in terms of space. How would you say you see the production run environment going over the next few years for MSP?
Definitely good. I mean, we're kind of trying to pump the brakes because or getting creative with our space. We have access to it in 2028, but that's still 2 years away. I would say we're just being very focused on the things that are most profitable and what my guys like doing the most. Because if they like doing it, they're usually faster and better at it. So we're just defining in great detail what jobs we're willing to do for these space companies and not trying to appeal to every job, which is bringing better work, more profitable work, which is helping our bottom line. So because of COVID, when we were struggling to just stay afloat, we'll take on anything. I mean, we're cutting wood and assembling like crates and stuff for some drone companies, to the point now we're slammed. And if during the quoting process, if there's specs or stuff that we have to research a ton, like especially with like glass and certain of those types of material, I'm like, oh, no, quote it. We're wasting too much time. Move on to something that's easier, more fun. And so the guys like that, and with some of the AI implementations that we've done, they're getting to do more of what they love, which is then making them quicker and freeing up our capacity. But I think we're going to keep investing more in automation so that we're running more lights out and on the weekends, to keep up with this production. But I really like that we can turn away jobs that we don't like, whereas COVID, like, we had to do anything we could.
Well, Johnny, it seems like you read my mind. Absolute perfect segue onto our next topic, which is when to turn down work, when to no quote. I guess for the uninitiated into machining and how machine shops work, this sounds like a crazy thing. Why would you not do a quote? Why would you not potentially put your bid out there to try and win business? But it's a really important thing. As a shop, you've only got limited capacity, you've only got limited capability, you've only got limited time. Obviously, I know all three of the machine shops have joined us today. Rhys, Johnny, Jesse, you all pride yourselves on quality, on reliability. It's been very clear from when I've spoken to you previously. So no quoting on jobs you can't do is super important. Maybe Jesse, do you want to start off with times that you've decided not to quote on jobs, or maybe specific reasons for that?
Yeah, no, one thing for me, just being a smaller shop like I am, is just if it's going to, and like pretty much for me, if it's going to involve me being dedicated to just that job for an extended period, makes it more difficult for us to quote. Uh, Things that are still in the design stage or the customers wanting to go back and forth with different iterations, basically just as a small shop, my direct time is the most valuable resource I've got, and figuring out how to manage that and turn jobs away because of that has been something we've had to figure out how to do. Uh, Especially, I came up. My dad had a machine shop I came up in, and his philosophy was too dumb to say no. So he took on virtually everything that came through the door, and I started my shop with that mindset. And I've learned some hard lessons that should not be the case.
Interesting, interesting. Can you give us a sneak peek into maybe one example of that?
Oh, just let's say yeah, no, small shop. It doesn't take much to overload us when it's just me here most of the time. So taking more than one large project at a time, and everybody wanting it within 4 or 5 weeks when it's just me turning the machines. Yeah, no specific examples, just lessons learned over time.
No, definitely, definitely, and I'm sure obviously, Rhys, you've been growing your shop now pretty rapidly. I'd say after visiting over the last 7 years now, you probably learned many of those similar lessons. Could you maybe give us a sneak peek into that?
Yeah, definitely. I think early on, similar to what Jesse was saying, you kind of, the temptation is to take on whatever you can. And then I think I kind of classify things as science projects. If something starts falling in the science project category, it's a definite no quote. It's just, you kind of got to figure out what you're good at and what your shop wants to do and what your guys enjoy. Because you start doing too many of those science projects, they end up being not profitable. And then if you don't enjoy them, then that's, not good for anybody. And then the other thing is, lead times and kind of expectations around that. It's, everybody, their fire is the most important thing to them. And I think you got to get to the point where, yes, you want to help people out, but you've got to also take your team into account. And, do you really want your guys working overtime on a project for, a customer that might not be the best fit for your shop? So kind of understanding that. And then also, is this going to be a good customer? Because if you have a customer come to you that is really demanding all the time, I see that as kind of a warning sign. So like if that's how things immediately start off, that they come to you and they have to have something in 3 days, there's probably many reasons that led to that situation. So I think those are all things you got to consider when you're considering taking on a job. But yeah, those are kind of my primary ones. And then maybe there's some like materials that we just don't like to work with that aren't fun. But in the past, I've ran G10. It's not my favorite thing to run, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna ever run G10 again. I'm perfectly okay with that. So, yeah.
Definitely, and I think for what we've seen, buyers are getting more demanding than ever. Looking at 2025, looking at 2026, going into it, buyers want speed. They seem to want incredibly tight tolerances and very fast turnarounds. How do you play customer expectations, not just for speed of quoting, but also speed of production and quality and tolerancing against each other? How do you make a good situation for yourself in your shop when customers are being so demanding?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it too, you have to realize a lot of these are they're buyers, right? They don't really understand what they have that they're handing off to you. So, walking them through kind of the thought process when you send off a quote, that like why you're quoting or not quoting it, then they can go back to their engineer. Like if there's a feature on there that, you've got to get in a custom tool for, let them know that and say, yeah, we would like to do this for you quickly, or we're not going to quote it because of this. I always try to at least have a reason, just so you're not just giving them we're not no quoting it. I'll say like, this isn't a fit for us because of like geometry. This is probably a better fit for this type of shop. So at least they get some knowledge out of it going forward, and you don't just kind of leave them with an answer that doesn't give them anywhere to go with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think if you can educate your customer, it's really nice when you have a great customer that you've been doing business for. Like we have customers of ours that we've been doing business, for many decades now. So that's kind of nice. But when you take on new customers, and that's the thing with some of these space, there a lot of the buyers and stuff are coming right out of like an engineering school. They've never stepped foot in a machine shop, and there's definitely a discrepancy with engineers and machinists between what you can actually machine. So some of them just don't know that what they're asking for is completely unreasonable. Um, so it's similar. We just try to educate our customers more, and then teach them kind of like this is what you can normally expect for us. If you want it in a day, we're probably not the right shop to ask for. But and then we've also had jobs that just like the sheer volume. We had one that was like a $50 million a year project, and that is way bigger than what type of shop we're in. I'm like, that'd be great if we could do that, but it's going to BK me more than it's probably going to make me successful. So
Hard one to
sheer
turn down.
volume, yeah. I mean, and the geometry, and that was the crazy. I reached out to my buddy who I'd consider like a subject matter expert, and he's like, "Run away from this one." And I was like, "All right, say less."
Do you think
Yeah,
they
I
ever
think
found someone to make it?
They'll find some. They're, I think,
Yeah.
gonna try to find 8 different suppliers to make it, all of which are much, much, much larger companies than us. So, I was very honored that the person thought I would be capable of doing that. But
I think one thing too is it's especially with new customers, setting your expectations with them early. Like if somebody
yes,
comes in, their new customer said, "Hey, do you mind if you could you just punch this out in a week?" And you say, "Okay, yeah," just to get your foot in the door with them. That right there lays groundwork for expectation going forwards. Like I about to say that's one example I've got is there's a buyer I used to work with at another company where we jumped through a lot of hoops because they wanted a lot of expedites and a wide variety of work. But they went from $0 to 400,000 a year within 6 months. But we were a bigger shop, we could handle that kind of thing. But recently, they've reached back out to me because they're not doing business with that shop anymore. But they want that same performance because I was the one they dealt with at the other company. I was like, I can't do that kind of song and dance right now.
Yeah.
yeah,
So anything with us is going to be a little bit longer, and that's just the way it is. But I still get some of the work. So basically, just do what you can do, and if it's still a little bit better than other folks, then you still got a leg up.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
you can plan your capacity like that and protect yourself, why wouldn't you? There's a great opportunity. You should put your neck out there and mess up your capacity planning without at least pushing back to some extent. I think something that we've spoken about quite a lot as AMFG in our blogs is about material pricing, kind of coming back to it. Free issue material, payment terms on some jobs being pretty punitive towards machine shops. Certainly, some of these larger OEMs, maybe some of these guys that are coming in from reshoring, being quite difficult when it comes to payment terms, when it comes to free issuing material. Is that something that you guys have seen as well? You could say no as well.
Oh.
If no one's seen that.
there's been a couple large jobs where, like, let's say we had a huge tooling investment, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of tooling for one job, and we were like, we need that tooling up front, because that's a ton of an investment. So when it's a huge dollar amount, we usually ask for some help up front. But also, on the other side, our vendors have extended terms for us on big projects and things of that nature. So I think if you have a good relationship with your customers and suppliers, you can navigate these issues a lot easier.
Yeah, and we've taken the approach just if a customer comes to us and we need different payment terms than what they're used to, it's been about 50, probably better than 50-50 where they'll work with us and give us a payment up front of some kind, things like that. And the ones that can't, then we just kind of, it is what it is. And if we can't pay it up, if we can't buy your stuff up front and you can't make a payment up front, then you'll have to find a new partner, new supplier.
Call it a day. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think on that note, we'll probably move to our final topic, our final kind of theme before going on to Q&A. I know we've got a few questions coming in already. Skills gap. It's obviously something that we've talked about a lot in 2025. It's something that's been talking about a lot generally, not just again in the US, but also what we see here in the UK. Johnny, we had an amazing chat about this. I'd say it was probably 50% of what we spoke about. You've had some amazing initiatives that you're doing at MSP to help promote getting young people into machining and manufacturing generally. I'd love to kind of put the floor to you and have you start on this. Maybe a bit of background on what you're doing to help close this skill gaps.
Yeah, so hopefully starting this new initiative next year, I've kind of expanded drastically since we spoke on this, but I'm forming my own entity that will be pretty much a machine shop only for education. So we're going to partner with some local schools that have, so their problem is they had the machines, they didn't have instructors. So my goal is to bring, and I've got some other people that are going to give me machine software, tooling, all this stuff to train the youth. But essentially, I want to try to make a 3 to 4 year program that's part time, so a freshman can enter it, and they're going to learn machining. They're also going to learn quality too, because it's when you're running a small shop, you got to be able to measure your parts and complete a first article. So teaching them like PCDMIS or how to run a CMM as well, and then just like estimating, quoting, and a little bit of accounting and business knowledge. So theoretically, at this end of this pipeline, if I hire anybody from this pipeline, they can feed any position I have within my company, and then I'll be able to see while they're going through the hardest things that are to find during an interview. So someone's work ethic, their ability and willingness to learn. And then we're going to have guest instructors from other shops, and they kind of want access to my pipeline. So that's kind of the return that they're doing. But my goal is just to not be reliant on skill entering the workforce. I'm going to build it myself.
Impressive.
And again, that's all because of like I speak so highly of relationships, because if it wasn't my relationships for some of these key people in our industry, like this would be impossible. I wouldn't have the capital to invest in this. But the fact that so many people believe not only in the cause, but they believe in me, that they're willing to donate a whole CNC machine, that's really cool. So once it goes out, they're going to get all the credit, because without them, this would not be possible.
No, it's fantastic. A lot of people talk about this issue, and it's an easy thing to talk about, but the fact that you're making steps to actually minimize it is brilliant, Johnny.
Yeah.
Rhys, I guess a question for you. Obviously, you're expanding pretty rapidly at the minute.
Yeah.
How would you say you've had challenges around bringing on that kind of skill capital into Method?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we've had the best success bringing on fresh people and then kind of teaching them what we're doing. I think specifically in our environment where we're at the level of machining that we're doing, it's hard to find anybody that can just step into our role. So like we've got one intern that came out of the Marines and was awesome. And like by the end of the summer, we had him running our 5-axis terminal automation cell. And then kind of same situation with our intern that he came to us while he was in a first robotics program in high school. And he did a semester in mechanical engineering. And then he just let us know that he's going to drop out and join us full time because it's more exciting and fun working in our shop. So nice. I think some of the kind of negative view towards the trades is starting to get reassessed, where it's not a bad thing to not go to college. And so that's pretty exciting. And then on our front, similarly, we're going to start launching some content around machining. We partnered with a machine tool builder to provide a machine that's just set aside specifically for creating education content. And then working with some of our local groups, like we have one in Texas called SWIFT, which is a space workforce incubator for Texas. And so just partnering with programs like that, showing people that, working in aerospace space is like a good career path, and kind of changing that narrative around, that these shops are dark, dirty environments, and that, it's high tech, you're, working with robots. I mean, it's totally different than what it used to be. So that's something that we're really excited about.
Definitely adjusting those perceptions. I think,
Mhm.
something we talk about loads, shops that kind of come on board with AMFG, often they aren't able to secure that kind of skilled estimating and quoting knowledge that they might have had. You just don't get estimators with 30 years experience going on trees.
Mhm.
It just doesn't happen. It's probably one of the main drivers for kind of adoption of quoting software. Obviously, I know not everyone on this call uses AMFG or quoting software maybe in general, but do you guys see 2026 and 2027 as being years where that trend only increases, or do you think there'll be more human capital coming into jobs like that? Or Johnny, maybe to paraphrase what you said, you kind of characterize AMFG as a force multiplier. Do you see it being not a replacement, but more of a accelerator?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how all the technology we're implementing is. It's just allowing our current employees to do more. And now that they don't have the thought that like AI or software is going to come for their job, it's going to make their jobs easier. I think it's a good buffer until more talent hits the workforce. But my concern is not so much staffing right now. It's staffing in 10 years when a lot of my most skilled people are going to be getting closer to retirement. Um, so I can either sit around and do nothing and let future Johnny really hate his life in 10 years or start building the solution now. But and then software, like just looking at full disclosure, I'm not a current customer, but seeing how fast you guys have evolved just from we started the conversation about a year ago to where you're at now is incredible. And there's a lot of companies that are like that, where it's like you think you've got something really awesome now, but really it's the worst it'll ever be. It'll keep getting better and better.
Mhm.
Definitely. Well, on that note, guys, we've got 30 minutes left. We wanted to give a bit of time for Q&A, 15 minutes. We've got 13, plenty of time. We've got quite a few questions that have already come in. So I'm going to read them out, as many as we can get through for the rest of this call. Anyone that has asked a question, I'll make sure to put it to the team on the panel afterwards and get back to you with an email. The team will make sure that that is the case. I guess we'll start off with the one that I see first. So we've got here, how do you break into the defense industry as a small machine shop? That's a great question. Maybe starting off, I guess, Rhys, coming into it, you're obviously doing a lot of defense work, I believe, alongside aerospace. Maybe do you want to
Mhm.
take this question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, like we've had the best luck. I go to conferences, just building that network, and just be aware that a lot of our customers, it's taken years to get to the point where we're working with them, and now those customers are some of our biggest customers. But um, don't expect it to happen fast, and that you're probably going to have to put your feet on the pavement and be persistent, especially, you know, in the current environment, people are distracted. If you get a no, don't take it as a forever no, just kind of keep checking in. Don't be annoying, but people get busy. So like, don't assume that they, are just blowing you off. Maybe they're just busy. So that's where we've had the best luck.
Definitely. And Johnny, I imagine you wanna jump in here as well, because you
Yeah.
very much
So
changed MSP from MSP manufacturing to a few different divisions, defense being a big one of them.
yeah, so we've been we're a prime to the DoD. So like the DoD is awarding the work straight to MSP.
Wow.
That all became out of a relationship. So at the time this is way before I joined the company, but 20 years ago, our vice president went to high school with a lot of the buyers at one of the naval bases. So those relationships got us onto these prime, multi-award contracts that we've just been renewing. And then our performance, on-time delivery, our customer service, just being a personable company, just makes them want to do more and more and more with us. But what I've learned, because I've got, that steady work that's been there before I got there, and then how I've brought in new work is um, telling the story of your shop. Because a lot of people, I think, start to just walk up and say, like, this is what our capabilities, our capacity is. And it's like, that's so boring. But like, I go and talk to the companies, and I kind of have a unique background, as you know, Henry. But I start telling, like, when I was working undercover narcotics, like I start telling those types of stories to people, and then like the MSP comes into play, and then our core values are in there, and then people want to do business with us before they really know truly what our capacity and capabilities are. And I would say, so just be a personable person, but you also have to expect, Rhys said, like, it's not going to come overnight. And it's good to have a great network, but you also got to be good for your network. So sometimes you got to help people out that has no benefit for you. You build that reputation, and usually it comes back. But a lot of work, a lot of effort, and just if you're startup shop, like, tell your story. What makes you unique? Like, when it comes to like machining, there's so many similarities between machine shops, between what they can do, whether it's 3 or 5 axis, but you need to see what's different, and not just like a certification, like how, because people are going to be doing business with you, not just just the machine. So that's where I've really added a little bit more personality to it. That works for private companies. The actual DoD or DOW, depending on who you're talking to. That's paperwork and accreditations to get on those.
No, definitely, it's a great answer. And move on to what I've got here. Hey guys, very interesting so far. Question for Jesse, Rhys, and Johnny. Ben, sorry you've been left out on this one. Should shops find their niche before setting up or after setting up?
I think when you're first setting up, you need to have an idea of what you want to do. You need to have a vision of kind of where you want to go. But the way I approach it is you need to have multiple niches. I'd say a lot of guys say you need to find your niche and stick with that when you're starting, but really I think find a couple you can serve that are similar to each other, and then just work that direction. But I don't like getting pigeonholed. A lot of people get tied into one customer, one type of industry, and they move up and down with that. But you want to find a couple niches that kind of touch different baskets. That way you can survive a little bit better, especially those first couple years.
Yeah, and you need that diversity too, because like with us being so tied to Boeing before the pandemic, like even before the pandemic, we were going downhill because of the crashes they had. But and those niches evolve too. Like what you may start out with, you add automation, you add 5 axis, you add other things. Like your niche then changes with your new tech. So it's a moving target for sure. But I think
Yeah.
I think I agree completely. I have a little bit of knowledge. Don't ever go to a customer asking for machining work. Define exactly what type of work, because no customer is like, I want a shop that is perfect at everything, because it's very few, if any, exist. But there's people that are really good at this and very good at that. So try to pick what you like doing is a good part too. Like if you hate lathe work, maybe don't offer lathe work.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
figure out what problem you want to solve, and then talk to your
Yes.
customer about how you solve that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with all that. I would say honestly, especially starting out, pick something that is going to set you apart from the field. And not only is that good for you, it's good for the industry. I mean, I think an industry with everybody having the same capabilities kind of becomes a race to the bottom. The story of us is I went and bought the biggest machine in the area, and you know, I go around, and when I talk to people, that's how it introduced us, that we had the biggest machine in the Austin area. And I didn't do any big parts for any of those people, but they took my calls because well, if you got the biggest machine, like clearly you can handle small stuff. So
Yeah, you defined your own niche, Rhys.
yeah. So I think having just something that sets you apart, that's a little bit different. And then, we no longer have that giant machine. We kind of changed directions, but because we at least had something where people could latch onto it, you weren't just like everybody else that was calling. I think that really helps out. And then and that came from understanding where were, voids in the market locally, right? So look at your local market or who you have contacts with, and what do they need, what's missing, and see if you can figure out how to fill that. Because if you're another shop out there with a VF2, well, almost every shop in the US has a VF2, so you're automatically competing against everybody out there.
Yes.
So that'd be my advice.
Yeah, the VF2 is I think the most popular Haas equipment ever sold.
Yeah. And
You
there's
looked at
nothing
the race,
wrong
that
with
was in
it.
Las Vegas.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of this, but
Awesome. Move on to the next one. We've got, I like this question. Johnny, I think you're going to be quite bullish on this. Do you think 2026 will be a good year for machine shops? I know my answer's
I
straight away.
have zero doubt it will be a good year. I think after the pandemic, they've been talking about aerospace 2024, 2025 being the best, and now they're saying 2026. I'm actually seeing that on our end because we've uh, we're planning for 2026 to be our best year by budget too. So we've already budgeted, our sales and everything, and we've already booked our whole first quarter of sales to hit that goal and half of the second quarter. And this is still with one more month of the year to go. And we usually have the opposite, where the first quarter has been historically our hardest quarter to hit, and then we spend the rest of the year just like trying to keep up or get back to the point. So the fact that we're starting the year better than we ever have, and a lot of it's all tied to our aviation products. And one customer that we get big orders from, they're always the first one to place orders when things are about to take off, and they're also the first one to cancel orders when things are about to go bad. So every time I see them taking action, I'm like, they are my indicator. And the fact that they're sending us a ton of orders, but they're also for the first time sending us long forecasts to make sure we can keep up with the demand, which gives me indication that Boeing and some of these other big primes are also expecting serious growth, not just in 2026, but the following years as well. And so I will say, I think it's going to be great for those that are in commercial aerospace and defense, not all shops in general, because I don't have knowledge on other industries.
Yeah, fair enough. And I want to come to Ben on that note. Ben, obviously, just as well as I do, we've seen a big explosion in terms of shops coming on board with quoting software as a result of many of these themes. But generally, quoting is seeming to explode for a lot of shops, and the skills aren't there to do it manually. Would you say there's any particular segments which are growing faster than others? Obviously, you've spoken a lot about aerospace and defense. There's a lot of exposure from shops in this call talking about that, but what would you say is the biggest industries growing?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Johnny a lot there. Aerospace and defense, just because the complexity of those parts, well, they're well suited for us. That's definitely what we see most of easily. But then also some medical parts coming through as well. I think that's definitely an industry that's hopefully going to see some growth based on what we've seen coming through the system.
Awesome. Well, I'm being shouted at. We've got 2 minutes left on the call, guys. Final question. I need to have answers from each of you. Try and keep it to under 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So we've got here, what's the best way to tell a customer their request is unrealistic while also keeping that job?
I think it's like what Rhys said, just give a specific reason, let them know what is unrealistic. Don't use a broad term, define what they're asking for is unrealistic. And you can just say, you could say unrealistic or just educate them. I might use better wordage, but
Yeah.
And I would go ahead.
I would agree. And the other thing too is if there's things on that, on the print that you aren't able to do, but you can do most of it. Maybe some of that, depending on where they're at in the project, they don't need it all. So don't be afraid to push back and say, hey, yeah, we can make this part, but we can't handle this process, or we don't have a vendor for this outside process. Do you have a approved vendor? Just work with,
About saying, and when you're first talking to them as well, tell them, I'd say, yeah, like y'all said, explain to them what the issue is, what's unrealistic about it, but also offer what you can do. Say, we can't do this, but we can achieve this if that would work for you, or find somewhere, try and find somewhere in the middle. But one thing I always try and keep in my head whenever having discussions like that is, it is what it is. So if you can't do it, if it is too unrealistic for you, then it is too unrealistic for you, and don't kill yourself to make it happen just to get your foot in the door. A lot of customers will appreciate you turning it away and saying, sorry, we can't help you this time, but keep us in mind next time, over you over promising and under delivering.
Definitely. Well, the clock has struck 5 o'clock. UK time, obviously, everyone in this call, I think, is in different times. Actually, no, Texas, and Indiana. So everyone's Central time. Thank you, guys, for joining the panel discussion today. It's been great to run over all of these different topics. I think we've had some really interesting insights. And thank you also to everyone that's asked the questions. Guys, any final notes you'd like to wrap this discussion up on?
No, I'd just say it's a collaborative environment. Don't always look at your other companies as competition. Look at how you can help each other out.
Nice.
Yeah, there's plenty of work out there for everybody. So partnering up with some other shops that do things that you don't do, or even similar things where you can help on bigger projects, is always super beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%.
Perfect, brilliant. Well, on that note, guys, we're going to end the call now, the webinar now. Thank you all for joining and providing these great insights, and have a good rest of your day to everyone that's joined.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.